We're gonna hit the mans with this right here. Look at that. Sage. Boy, Sage. No, we're just laughing.
You're just making fun of me.
We're gonna hit him with a reverse south side. All right. So first step, looking at him, I want to take out weight off these corners, right? First thing I can see is I like the length in the front, and I like the shape that he naturally has. We just want to taper it down in the back. We're gonna give him a nice like mid-high bald fade. So I'll just go in first with clip over comb. Clip over comb, and then Ross is gonna come in, hit him with a 10-second fade. So I'm just coming in with the clipper open, okay, and my comb. Staying. So I'm going no guard open, okay, in my comb, and I'm going flat to his head, making sure to keep the square shape. So if you need, I'll go in front of the mirror, hold my comb straight up, okay? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna build a corner here that will taper down later. I'm just removing bulk from the sides. Then I'm gonna close it and go all the way up to that point. So to this point, clipper closed, and I'm just using my comb to guide it. So as I get to the round of the head, I'm just gonna use this as my guide, and I'm gonna use my feet to circle around the head, all the way around, to stay consistent. So I step. On the footwork. Now I'm closing it. So I built the weight up first, just to see how the silhouette would look with the corner in the back. So for me, knowing that I'm gonna give a mid-high fade, I'm gonna cut into this weight right here, okay, to remove all this. So what I'll do, I like the length from the apex forward, so I'm just gonna remove all the weight from the apex down to here, round. So I'll just use my clipper over comb to remove the majority of the bulk. Again, just following the head around here. Again, this is all part of just building the basic shape. Then we're gonna go in and fade them up and then refine after. Because how short I'm going, like if I try to grip his hair with my fingers, I'm gonna be barely cutting anything. So it's gonna be like harder. I'm gonna go in with my scissors though after. So I'm gonna start this fade. As you can tell, the length of the haircut's shorter. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bald, like in the picture, I'm gonna bald him out higher on the temple right here. So I'm gonna start with my 0. So no guard close. Right at the corner right here. Another thing to keep in mind is when I line him up, I want this side right here to really pop. So after cutting it, what I'm starting to notice is I'm gonna change my mind. I'm gonna wanna arch it a little bit more just to really bring out that corner. So instead of just straight, like following the natural shape of the head, I'm gonna curve the line just slightly, just to give it more of an arch. So I'm just gonna look in the mirror and make sure it's balanced, because this is my baseline, so this is the most important part, to make sure you have an even fade. So whenever I'm cutting, whenever I make my guides, I flick out, just so it makes it easier to blend out later. There's no need to have like a super harsh line if we're just gonna fade it out anyways. It's all about like efficiency, like trying to knock out the most things in one move. So I'm gonna go no guard open and just flick out. Yeah, fold up. So now I'm gonna go 1.5 guard close. So here, what I wanna do is, I wanna go straight up, but I wanna kind of bevel out that corner. So I'm gonna round into it just slightly, like just slightly. So I'm just taking my liners right below the 0 line. Just balding that out. So now I'm gonna hit my shaver. So I know this is where I hit my no guard close or 0. Then I hit my liner just below that. I'm gonna hit my shaver now just a little bit below that. So it should be about a finger's depth or a finger's width below the 0 line. So in order to not create a harsh line, what I like to do is I like to tap, then circle, and then shave up towards the bottom to get it really sharp. So after I bald them out, I'm gonna work on my 1.5 to my half. So I'm gonna do that using a 1 guard open, and I'm gonna slowly lower the lever until I blend out this weight line right here. Again, because I made my levels flicking out, I made a very soft line, so it should be fairly easy to blend out. But yeah, it's like one thing to keep in mind. Just use the corners, and I usually go like 1, 2, 3. If it doesn't cut, I lower. 1, 2, 3. Lower. 1, 2, 3. And I'm just trying to knock out the spots. Like I'm just looking at the spots, not the whole area. Yeah. Because if it didn't cut it, if it didn't blend it within 3 like strokes,
Means you gotta go down a guard?
yeah, just go down a guard and go lighter with your touch. Yeah, well, I'm gonna cut into a little bit more, like this, because it's so short. We're gonna remove some of that weight still.
Yeah.
I just like to create, that's why I like to create the basic shape first, just so I have like a blue, so it's like we have the shape and then we just condense it. And you just condense, you already know exactly like the form you gotta keep it in, we just condense.
And then you can still do it without like digging too much into them where they look like a pineapple.
Right, yeah. And it's about knowing like where to flick out. Like, remember what I was telling you with the comb?
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to build the shape, you're thinking layering. So you keep your motion straight up, straight line.
Yeah, that's right.
But if you're trying to blend it, you're fading, you're graduating. So then that's when you add the flick.
Okay.
So you're creating a
So
corner.
I gotta change my technique then, because I leave my clippers flat on the head.
Yeah. Like if I leave my motion flat, digging into the head, I'm layering. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna start cutting into the shape.
Yeah.
So now I'm just using a half guard open just to get any like other dark spots out. But it's just good to keep in mind because like that's one thing I was learning, or like watching Daniel cut, or like the guys that know. They do one thing and they achieve it in just one motion.
Dude, it's crazy.
Like people who've been cutting hair for a long time.
Sometimes when I see it too, I'm like, yo, are my clippers broken? No, dude.
But like you ask, like whenever I used to watch Daniel and I'd ask him, he knows exactly why he's doing every little move he does on a haircut. He knows exactly why he's doing it. It's no wasted movement, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's not. So I think when you pay attention to that, or whenever I started paying attention to that, that's when your time gets better. That's when your haircuts get more consistent. But like when you're just cutting and you don't even know what you're doing, like how each cut's like affecting the shape or the fade.
Yeah.
You're just like cutting.
Your haircut's just gonna be all
That's yeah. Then you just go in circles and then you don't get a.
chasing.
So now I'm just gonna blend out from the half to the bald, just with no guard, and slowly closing my lever until the line blends out.
Half guard push.
Yeah. Here I'm just like
Go
eyeballing.
directly underneath, right?
Yeah, right underneath. And like one thing I learned from Vince, like you don't necessarily get caught up in like the numbers and like what lever you're on. You just
Yeah.
look at the dark spot. Just spot check. Like you're just looking at what spots are, and you blend out just the spot.
Oh,
Like
so
don't worry about like, oh, this was my
This is what
lever
the
was
half
half closed.
gradient.
Yeah. You're just like looking at, I mean, obviously know what place you were with your levels, but because the head's uneven, like a lot of times I feel like we fade. When we first start fading, we think about every hair being the same length, but the
Yeah.
head's uneven, so fading's more like visual. Like you set the guidelines just to have a rough idea and you don't get lost.
So what do you do with people with like dents in their head? Do you just kind of like leave the shape and leave it?
Well,
like, be a dark spot?
sometimes you have to leave areas darker, and like that's why like you have to. Luckily, Sage's head's flat. He doesn't have like,
You got a good head, boy.
but yeah, you got to be. That's like, for example, if he had a big ass dent right here,
Yeah.
I would have to bald it out lower
Really?
to keep some weight right here to cover it up, right?
Yeah, because I commonly know like guys have like, or people have dents on their
Yeah.
side.
Or you recommend if it's a client, then you would explain to them like, yo, honestly, I think because your head's like wrinkly or has dents, like maybe you shouldn't go as tight. Or if they're insistent on it, just show them what you mean.
Oh, especially for like the super wrinkly tongue.
Yeah. Like I'm getting better about that too. Is just letting clients know.
Having dents, basically.
Not only that, but just like letting them know what you really think. You're the professional, right?
Yeah, true.
It's like let them know what you really think and what they should do, and then if they still insist on doing it a certain way, then it's like yeah. All right. So now that this is just mainly like a rough draft blend, and I'm gonna go in and detail it after. But I'm gonna line up his sides right here, and then refine the shape. Then we'll go back in and like really perfect the blend. So I'm just gonna use my straight razor.
Are you going straight in?
Yeah. Get as sharp as I can without. Again, I'm like thinking longevity. So this looks like he's going in the army. We're just gonna cut through some of this corner right here. But that's why I like to save it till last, just so I can see everything, see exactly how much weight I want to take out of the corner. So I'll just use my comb flat against the head so the hair expands, and I'm just gonna round out. Change my mind, I'm gonna use my fingers. Thank you.
It's like a quick 15. Oh, you working? Yeah. I got you.
For real. So the basic cut's done. Now everything from here on is refinement, right? What I still see is still weight on the corners that I want to cut through. So what I like to do is I'll look in the mirror and then I'll use my hand to help guide me to where I want to cut. So I'm going to cut through all this weight right here into the round of his head. So I'm going to look in the mirror and see exactly where I want to cut. So there's point A, point B, right, where the fade. And I want to cut through that just to give him more like a softer look. So I'll just come in. And what I'll do is, it's kind of like doing diagonal forward sections, like with longer hair. I angle my comb that way because I'm going to round out this corner in the back. So now I'm just going to point cut it, just to give it some texture. Was that? I can put that down. Well, it was more like I was just watching and I was trying to replicate, but I didn't understand it. And then when they talk about layering in school, then I was like, oh shit, I get it. Jeez. Do it. What do you want me to trim the beard down? Just shape it?
Yeah, just freehand it.
All right.